Nithyananda Paramashivam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tattvamasyadiraksham Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Welcome back to Yoga from the Source.
He's like, which one is it? All those things that we do. Yes, welcome. Again, we've had a little gap of time between our last podcast and this one.
We got to stop saying this. We shouldn't even let people know that because we keep saying there's this gap honest. And then
Right, we're just being honest, being straightforward. We've had some busy weekends. This September was pretty packed. Like, it was a very busy month for us and lots of stuff going on, including our last weekend experiences, which we're kind of going to be sharing about with you guys in this podcast. And I think that's really all we can do is continue to share with you what we experience and how we experience it, because that's all that we can share from. That's our perspective and our experience. And so, yes, we were at
Bhaktifest.
So Bhakti is the theme. If you've seen the title of this video or this podcast, and we're going to be diving into what Bhakti is. What is the path of devotion, the path of surrender, the path of divine worship, divine connection, and why and how we can use that in our path of yoga, our personal experiences of that Bhakti in our lives, and how it has transformed our lives.
Yeah. With if you don't know what Bhakti is, to really explain it is tough with words even.
Yeah.
We could sit and talk about Bhakti all we want, but it is something that is sheerly an experience that nobody would really be able to understand what Bhakti means. Oh, let me introduce you to my first experience of Bhakti.
Yeah.
When I was in Kumbh Mela, Nasik Kumbh Mela. Uh-huh. So this was 2015. I had attended an Inner Awakening program with Swamiji, and I'd learned about Kumbh Mela and that Swamiji was going there, and I just really wanted to go. And I thought, oh my goodness, what a cool opportunity to go to one of the most spiritual places on the planet.
Yep.
With the most, how many people? Hundreds of millions of people. Maybe not that year. I think maybe closer to like 70 million or something like that.
Yeah, still crazy.
Still a lot of people. Sadhus, sages, yogis from all over India, all coming to this one place. And here we were in Swamiji's camp. There was just a few thousand of us there. Actually, no, this was the first in Nasik. There was only...
Yeah, it was smaller.
Yeah, it was smaller.
Ujjain.
I want to say... my memory's fading on it, but I want to say maybe closer to 1,000 people. And Swamiji gave me my first experience of Bhakti, and that was where I was just literally, one day we went to one of the temples, and it just so happened to start pissing down rain. And Swamiji goes and sits on a bench and just sits in the rain.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
And
I wish I saw that.
There was about 300 of us or so that just sat down around him, and we just sat there. And
Getting soaked.
Just got completely soaked, and we just sat there. And I couldn't help but this whole time I was really close to him. I was one of the closest people. And we just sat there. And I remember just looking at him, and I was just like in awe of him. Like you can tell he's enlightened. You can tell like there's something about his presence that's so different. And the whole time I was just like sitting in this awe, and it just started to flower and open up more and more. We sat there for, I want to say, close to an hour in the rain.
Wow.
And it was raining hard.
Dang.
And as that hour went along, I just became more and more like engulfed in this like gratitude just to be in this state with him, and to be like, the rain made it even better somehow. I felt like I was just falling more and more in love with him, and this concept of bhakti I didn't even know what it was at the time, but eventually I started to cognize that this deep feeling connection that I was getting with Swamiji there was really, and it has been such an anchor for me for the rest of my spiritual journey since then. And that was 4 years ago or so. And oh my goodness, I can't express what bhakti is in words. I can't express what that moment was like, being there with Swamiji, rain pouring down. I just wanted to, I was in love. I was just like just in sheer bliss, just sitting with Swamiji.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
But that is bhakti. Bhakti is a feeling. It's a very overwhelming, very overpowering, but in a good way, feeling of complete overwhelming love and surrender. And it's not a love which you really experience with human beings. You can definitely get glimpses of it, I would say, but it's like the love you've been looking for your whole life. It's the true unconditional love of God, of the divine, of the ultimate, of source, of Paramashiva, or whatever that form is that you relate to, whether it's Devi or Krishna or Shiva or whomever, or your guru. It's the experience is the same when you grow that bhakti inside. And in the Vedas, I shared this in my last YouTube video as well, but I think it's a really great excerpt that the Vedas explains what bhakti is, and this is the English translation, but it says that bhakti is to relish in the bliss of God. So it's explained that, and Swami Mukundananda kind of explains in his satsangs on this as well, but he's only citing the Vedas, which is explaining that basically what bhakti is it's an exchange. You give when you give your bhakti, your love, you give your devotion to that source, what gets given back to you is bliss. And it's exactly equivalent. So the more that you grow your bhakti, the more that you flower that bhakti inside, and you grow it and you nurture it, you get more and more experience of bliss, deeper and deeper experience of bliss. You can't get more bliss than what you're giving out in your bhakti.
And I can say that really does give a good understanding of what I experienced in that moment. But it was happening in real time, this cycle of just falling in love and then being more blissful because of that. And this cycle just kept on like a cyclone, growing and becoming more intense. And I can really say that was what my experience was like.
That makes so much sense. And that is exactly what it is in my experience as well. But I think that, it's so... Sometimes I think people have a lot of questions with the path of bhakti, and rightly so, right? Just as a precursor, bhakti is not going to be a path for everyone. There's a lot of beings which cannot, will not, or choose not to connect with the divine in form. Or they're just, either they feel that that's not natural for them, it's not a capacity for them, or that's not the path that they are choosing to go down. It's usually compared to even in Living Enlightenment, I was just reading one of Swamiji, our guru, Bhagavan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam's quotes from Living Enlightenment, probably his most famous book. And he's talking about bhakti, the comparison of bhakti path versus jnana path, which is the path of knowledge, and how those are often compared in the world of yoga, bhakti yoga versus jnana yoga. And being a bhakti yogi means that you've decided to completely surrender. That you feel like, I can't do anything on my own. And surrendering that space to allowing that divine presence in your life to just be the one that gives you everything. It's like a complete unclutching, a complete surrender. Whereas jnana yoga is I will do everything. I will achieve it. There's not one right or wrong. And actually, at least in my experience, I feel like Swamiji has helped me merge the two in the path that we follow, which is what I love so much about it, because I have gotten to experience so many moments of complete surrender and that realization that I have to surrender to be able to go further, but also how empowering it is to search for your own knowledge and your own experiences, and also feel that you are the ultimate and that you can achieve it. And so I really feel like he's merging those two paths really beautifully.
I was just going to say, this is like, there's all these different paths in yoga, one being Bhakti, another Jana. But at the same time, Swamiji merges everything together. He takes the best of everything, the best of... He wants you to be enlightened, ultimately. He wants you to live powerfully. And each one of these paths has something incredible to give.
Exactly.
And he harnesses those gifts or those powers. And I can say from my experience where there's times where I'm completely in Bhakti yoga. And then there's times where I have zero Bhakti at all. But I understand the context of something. I have the Jana that's needed, and I'm completely a Jana yogi. And so there's times where each form or each path has its place, and as we just shift and flow through our reality, our experience of life, one will be presented or one will be needed in certain times, and that's when you can really embrace each one.
Yeah, I believe Swamiji, like some years ago, I remember at one of the programs I was attending as a participant, he was sharing about the reason humans are kind of silly or stupid if they think that they don't need any form to connect to, because you are in a form. Like, as long as you have any cognition, you are this body, you will have to relate to God or the source or the divine in some type of form. Only if you're in a place where you have completely transcended this form can you understand God as formless, which makes so much sense to me as an intellectual as well, as an intellectual concept. Like, how can you even grasp formless God until you have grasped that as yourself, or that yourself is beyond something beyond this body? And so that's why it helps so much. And you see within the path of Sanatana Dharma, of Hinduism, it's a very, very, and again, not always, there's so many different branches of within Sanatana Dharma and different devotional paths and different paths to enlightenment, but many include a lot of physical form worship, deity worship. That's what kind of Hinduism is most, I would say, like, known for. Very, very centered on outward expression of devotion and worship. And as a Westerner, sometimes we see that and we get scared of it. We think, why? Like, that seems weird to, like, why do we need to do that? Like, that seems so extravagant, or a waste of time or money or resources or whatever. I've heard, every argument. And I've questioned them, of course, myself too, but what I've understood is through experience, through living such an authentic, really traditional Hindu lifestyle like we did in the Adiram for so many years, and how Swamiji has shown the revival of, like, this temple culture and ritual culture and the power of rituals, which are a huge part of Hinduism, doing puja, doing arti, doing homas, doing, so many different forms of deity worship and celebration. And I've experienced just profound bliss and profound connection to the divine, deeper than I've ever been in my life. Because of those tools, that's what they are. I feel like they really do ground you in your experiences, and they allow you to have more tangible experiences versus just praying in your inner space. Can definitely be an experience for sure, and we get gifted with connection, of course, throughout our life, but it takes it to a next level in my experience of getting to revere and worship forms and seeing how they channel that divine energy, And I know even Drita and I have such different and unique experiences, because I was raised religious. So for me, I don't think it wasn't as far of a jump to worship anything. And for him, I think it was probably more challenging to step into the Bhakti. I don't know, maybe not, because you were like atheist for your whole life. So how was that for you?
Well, for me, I would say I never jumped into like worshiping Swamiji right away.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
not, I mean, I can understand why a Western mind might be like, this is cultish. There's something doesn't seem right here. But for me, when I was on the spiritual path, I understood a few things based off of experience and off of knowledge and understanding. Like, for instance, learning from Eckhart Tolle and Neil Donald Walsh, all these people that had very enlightening experiences and shared, and their books were incredible, and they gave a lot of depth and understanding into certain things. When I read Swamiji's books, it was the same thing, only next level. It was, for me, like Eckhart Tolle was absolutely amazing in Power of Now, and nothing against him or Neil Donald Walsh. But when I read Living Enlightenment, it was just like a quantum leap in as far as conscious understandings with certain concepts. And so I had a deeper understanding that, okay, this guy this guy Swamiji, this guru, he's incredible. Like, with the things that he's saying, I learned so much. But then I met him in person, and when I got there in person, I was like, okay, not only does he have all these incredible teachings, but now his space, like his energy, like he would walk into a room and it's literally like he just glided in somehow, and just radiating bliss, and I could feel the frequency just elevate when he entered into the room. And so now I had this understanding, and then it got to a point where I never was told to worship Swamiji or anything like that. And I could say in a lot of ways I don't necessarily worship him in what people might understand. But I have, because you can view a guru in various different ways. You can view a guru as mother, father. For me, as God. For me, I see Swamiji as God incarnated, but for me, he's like my mentor. He's not my mother. He's not my father. He's like my ultimate mentor. And the more that I would just take what I had learned and what my experiences were, whether it's through his teachings or just being in his physical presence, all of that, I don't want to use the word baggage because that's like a negative connotation, but all of that wisdom or all of that punya. Is punya the right word?
I don't know.
I'm just taking everything that I've gained with him, and it's just only like hovered me up higher and higher to a space where my heart opens up more and more, and I fall more in love with this being, and seeing the things that he does, and have him initiate so many people into, Kundalini awakening, third eye awakening, etc. It's just like I just rise in love. There it is. Rise in love with the master. He's written a book called Rise in Love with the Master. That's exactly what my experience was.
Yeah.
And so I don't tell anybody, like, you don't need to worship him as God. Don't do anything. Like, read his book. Listen to his satsangs. Get into a program. Try and get into his space and really feel what his energy is like. And I don't need to do anything. You don't need to do anything.
It just happens.
Honestly, it just happens if you're open to receiving these truths.
Yeah, I think that actually is a perfect point to bring in, is like with Bhakti, sometimes I think we desire it, but we don't know how to get it. Like, we don't know how to achieve that love or that connection to God, or to Paramashiva. But the truth of the matter is exactly that you don't actually have to do anything other than be open. As long as you have cleared your vessel and your receptacle and it's not like blocked off by a wall, and you are just willing to be exposed, just open to the reception of the experience, it is gifted to you. Absolutely, it is gifted to you. It's what we call grace, right? It's the grace of the divine, of God, that gets showered on us because just by the willingness to receive. And so it can feel like hard to get it, but the only thing you really, really have to do to start receiving bits and pieces of it and start to grow it and build up is to just ask. Like, that's all I've ever done to get my experiences that I've had direct connection to that divine love, to feel that divine love actually physically in me and showered on me and radiating through me, is because I just asked for it. I literally just asked for it. I just say, please, like, I want to experience that. Like, I want to feel that again. And it happens. Like, it's just the fact that I forget to ask sometimes that I don't feel it. That it's all a forgetfulness only. But when I do decide, oh yeah, like, this is something I really want to cherish and experience, this is the experience I am intending for, you know, I am that intention to be something, especially like something like puja, where you can really make a sankalpa, a conscious intention, a conscious resolution to ask for that, or whatever that you want in your day. That's what a tool that we use on a daily basis. That's one of our main forms of sadhana, of spiritual practice that we do, is that daily puja, where we can just, even if in the moment we're not feeling any connection, which happens, it does happen. There's times where I feel like you're just doing it. I take those times to ask for usually something. If I'm feeling like I don't have any connection, I'm just asking, can you give me that connection? I really want to feel that connection to this again. And sure enough, it happens. And sometimes we need a little patience, and that's okay. But bhakti is so worth it. It is so worth the experience. When you see someone, if you guys have ever seen great masters on video or in person, or even just very, very elevated spiritual people, you might notice they have something in their eyes. It's like there's a twinkle, there's a sparkle there that is just radiating, like so pure, so piercing. And that, my friends, I would say that is bhakti inside somebody. When you see that, it's divine love, which is you're witnessing through their eyes. And so those beings, if you seek to feel that or experience that or be like that, I would just really urge you guys to nourish that inside, because it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't happen on its own. It will only happen if you're asking for it, if you're willing to receive it and you're wanting to receive it. Because the beautiful part of life that Swamiji always teaches us too is life has no hypocrisy. So if you don't ask for something and you don't want it, you are not going to get it. It's that simple. You create your reality. So if you're intimidated or scared or even just literally closed off or just haven't been intentionally seeking it, of course it wouldn't happen to you. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel like you're not special and it's never going to happen. It's absolutely not that. It's just that you didn't necessarily ask for it or sit there and let yourself receive it. So
I would say quest versus questions is really important to understand too. A lot of people ask a question, and you know how sometimes people ask a question and they don't even listen to your answer. Like they'll just say it, and then like they have their next question, or their mind's already completely wandered. So there's a difference in I just want to clarify, like, having a question and then having this quest to, I really want to experience this. Like, this is a deep desire of mine, and I'm willing to do what it takes to have this experience. And a lot of the times that means doing very little. But sometimes it means getting into the trenches of life and experiencing a very deep low, so you can really all of a sudden be available to this really incredible high that maybe was not going to happen otherwise. And so just having this understanding that it can't be a surface level question, I want to experience this, and then you're just on with the rest of your day. It really does need to be an inner quest. And I mean, if you're listening to this though, then right away I can tell you you're on the right path, because this is the same path that Priscilla and I went on, and we both were ultimately gifted with that experience. And so just really I hope this resonates with you, that it can't be a surface level question. I
think that's a really good point, because I think it was actually also in Living Enlightenment, Swamiji was talking about there's a difference between like your yearning for something. I like that word. Like, it really, like, anything that we achieve in life is because we yearned for it. Like, nothing comes easy. And that's not to say it's hard, it's just not easy. You know, like, there's so many little paradoxes, but like what I mean to say is, it takes the intensity of life life, always look for an intensity, because think about how many millions of things on a weekly basis you actually think about and ask for. Little things all the time. Oh, I need to go to the bathroom. Oh, I want a glass of water. Oh, I want to go grocery shopping. Oh, I need to finish this assignment for work. Oh, I hope that next week I can take a vacation. Oh, I hope that in December I can take this trip. Like, right? You constantly, the thoughts are going. And so if it just becomes one of those, there's like, it's lost in a sea, right? Of like so many intentions. So I think that's a good way to maybe visualize like why that continuous yearning and a little stronger of that oomph of that yearning, that seeking is there. Because you have to be persistent with it. You know, you have to be persistent with it and not give up, and just keep deeply seeking and asking until you get what it is you're looking for. That's all. Do anything and everything to get what it is you're looking for. And this is for all of life, but especially with this, with the divine connection, devotion, it's something which I think that is definitely a part of.
One thing that I can say that I did was when I first was going on my spiritual path, I had this desire to just like completely unite with God.
Yeah.
And this was before I even knew Swamiji, actually. I had this meditation one time where I had this understanding that God is at this like certain very high frequency that I needed to somehow resonate my own frequency to, and that this frequency was a place where gratitude and bliss is, and the state. And so I started to law of attraction my way there, so to speak, because I understood that concept. And I remember just lying there on my bed, like lying down on my back, and just like completely opened my whole body up, and just I wanted to melt my energy into the divine energy. And all I did was I connected to situations and moments that I understood that were tangible, like, you know, a moment with my mother, you know, the divine mother, the cosmic mother. Well, my mom was, she was an incredible mother growing up, and I could understand tangibly like how she always took care of me, and then I correlated that to the cosmos always taking care of me, and then just reminded myself of some of the most blissful moments I've ever had. And all of a sudden I started to resonate and had this experience of melting and uniting and experiencing yoga, this really deep feeling connection with the divine. And that in itself is like an artificial way of achieving bhakti, like true bhakti. But for me, like I said, I law of attraction my way into this. I did this consistently for extended period of time. And then Swamiji showed me what the real bhakti is eventually. And so just that was a way of me keeping it at the forefront of my mind, having this daily meditation practice where I would sit and soak in this bliss. And ultimately, you know, Swamiji showing me that, you know, Nithyananda, this eternal bliss, is already deep within me, and I can connect to that now, today. I don't need to think about my mom. I don't need to think about happy experiences. I just think about Swamiji, and all of a sudden, like, I can like spark that within me. That is the power of bhakti now. It's just like this one thought. At any moment in time, I can just connect to Swamiji, and I can get into a very blissful state of being.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like, man, there's so many experiences I could share as well. I'm trying to think like where to even start, but I remember actually somebody brought this up on my video, so maybe I'll touch on it. I find it really interesting, and we don't talk about this stuff very often. You know, the intersectionality between other different faiths and life experiences. So why not take a moment to do that? So somebody had commented that on my last video on Bhakti that they had kind of, you know, those divine experiences when they were in church growing up with the Eucharist, as the priest would like consecrate the Eucharist. And it just like, it was interesting to see that reflection, because it reminded me that I also had those experiences as a child. Like, even before I understood all of this and the depth of it, and I definitely have had, I would say, deeper experiences of it, through the path that we're on now, of Sanatana Dharma, and through my guru. But at the time, it was still an extremely profound experience for my child self, of when I would be in church I really was cognizing that the moment, like in Catholicism, that they hold up this Eucharist, they call it, the bread. It's like a wafer of bread. And what they teach you is that it's actually becoming God in that moment. It's called transfiguration.
So when you take the bread, you become God?
No. That's the difference. There's nothing like that. But what it means is it's that now this bread is actually changing at a molecular level into a different substance. It looks like bread to the eye, but it actually is the body of Christ. It's actually Jesus.
Okay.
So that's the belief within Catholicism, and that's the difference between the Catholic Church and Christian Church. Christian Church doesn't believe it actually becomes Jesus. Catholic Church is more like mystical, like it believes it really actually is Jesus, and the wine becomes his actual blood. So that's like what you're believing as this process is happening. And so I really did like believe it. So I had that experience just because I had the belief. I fully did believe that substance, it was channeling that Christ energy into that church that I was sitting in, and I could feel it. Like I could connect to it. I could feel that presence of Christ, of the Christ consciousness, at that young age. And that was just a glimpse of the experience at that time. But it reminded me like of all these. I think that a lot of us, maybe without even knowing it, you've had so many experiences of it, glimpses of bhakti throughout your life, I think that sometimes even we label certain experiences as one thing, but I think that all of us, especially the younger that we are, we're much more tapped into that naturally. Children are very much already in a bhakti connection. They just don't have a word for it, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. So you might have had moments throughout many moments of your childhood that you can look back on and be like, wow, wait, I think I have experienced that. How I would explain it is like moments where you feel like your entire body is just oozing love. Like it's so much pouring out of your heart that you can't even stop it from going outward. It's just like overflowing. It literally feels like it's too much to hold in yourself. And it's like you could cry, but of joy, of complete like bliss, complete ecstasy, that feeling. And I think that we do get gifted with glimpses of it throughout our lives, most of us. I think maybe, if not all of us, we just maybe don't recognize it as what it is. And that God consciousness that is always trying to connect with us. That's the thing. That's the beautiful thing, is that Source, Paramashiva, is waiting for you to ask. That's the most beautiful, powerful thing I have learned on my spiritual journey, is that God is always just sitting there waiting for you to hold your hand out. His hand, her hand is always outstretched. It never stops being there. It's just that we don't put our hand out. We just have to take that one little step to ask, to seek, to hold on to, and it's like the floodgates open. The floodgates start opening more and more. So as you continue to have that intention, that seeking, that asking for something, it just continues to grow and grow and grow and grow until it can become your very life, It can become your daily experience. Ultimately, that's the goal, I think, for all of us, is that now this is never going to go away in me. I'm so rooted and grounded in this, and I haven't got there yet as a daily experience, but I can tell you that over the past 5 years, it's exponentially only increasing with how many hours of my day, week, month, year are spent in higher states of consciousness, of bliss, of gratitude, of not feeling depleted or low or in pain like I used to feel so much of my time. That suffering starts to get erased. It completely starts to get erased. And actually, I remember one more thing that I was sharing in my video too, that I loved this quote about Bhakti too, that Bhakti is one of the only things that has the power to break through Maya. Like Swamiji said this. He said, Bhakti has the power to shatter the illusions of Maya, to completely wake you up from the delusion and illusion that we are in this physical world, to make you realize all of this really is not real at the end of the day, and there's something bigger, something much, much bigger, which is inside of you. And Bhakti is what can be that initiation, basically, into that. Yeah, so it's a very mystical, very mystical topic. And yes, again, I know it's hard. It's a hard topic to touch on into the listening of people, because I think everybody's at a very different place in their life with their experiences of direct divine connection. And so I think that sometimes it can feel a lot. It can trigger a lot of feelings in people. And I totally understand that. If you feel anything, it's okay. It's a big, deep, mystical topic to touch on. But I do think it's worthwhile. It's worth looking into. It's very, very worth looking into, in my opinion, to seek. And I think what else helps too is like reading experiences of other people. That's one thing that has helped me a lot on my journey as well. Like reading of all the saints, all the other masters, all the disciples of the world that have been with these great beings, incarnations. When you read their experience, it's like also an initiation. It awakens it awakens it in you. You see like, oh, that's a possibility. This person, I can really feel that person's experience is real, and it's so beautiful to read those accounts and to start to imbibe them in our lives,
Yeah. And I mean, and on the flip side of that, that's why we share our experiences too. When we get to share our experiences, it helps you understand that this is something a little bit more tangible maybe. And then on our end, it helps us bolt these experiences into our biomemory, into our being, so we can literally tap into them more and more. And so when we share, it's only enriching us and enriching others as well. So, I mean, that's one thing. If there's maybe a hack into manifesting more bhakti, it would be to acknowledge the situations in life that you are just overwhelmingly grateful for, and share them, because it's only going to grow it and have those experiences happen more and more in your life.
So true. So very true. I definitely encourage that as well. It's worked well for us. That's what I can say. Yeah. It helps so much, because all that happens is it's like a snowball effect, because if one person even hears and then they click with it and they talk to you about it, it's already now become twice as big, right? And so when you start to have, dozens of people or hundreds of people or thousands of people sharing in that experience with you, it grows it, right? What we give that energy to, it starts to grow. And so that's a great hack, I think. So true. Yeah. And I was just thinking though, we should end on a little bit about our Bhaktifest experience. So we were, like we touched on in the beginning, we were spent this past weekend in the desert of California in nearby Joshua Tree at a festival called Bhaktifest. It's been happening now, I think, for over a decade.
11 years, they said.
Oh yeah. Right over a decade. And it's a gathering of exactly that, of bhakti, of sharing in the devotion to something greater. And it's centered a lot on kirtan, yoga, and meditation, and different spiritual discourses. And it's mainly a large gathering of Eastern tradition, but it's not just that. But it mainly is focused in that, because bhakti is centered in that path. And so we've never been before. It was our first time. And it was a wonderful experience. It was a very beautiful experience, because kind of like what you were just touching on, when you get to share in the space of bhakti with thousands of other people who are feeling the same thing, it makes it amplified. Like it's such a ecstatic, beautiful experience, man. Like I can't even, it was so amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better celebration of life. And I'll just share my very last experience there, which was on Sunday when we were about to leave. We decided we were going to head out, and I kind of asked in my inner space, like, I just want one last experience of connection to God, to Paramashiva in my space, and I want to just feel like that bliss. I want to just feel that complete gratitude and, life force energy. And sure enough, we were sitting down by some tent. I don't even remember why we sat down, maybe to eat or something. But there was this kirtan band playing we weren't even planning on seeing, and they were a really beautiful little group of 5 or something, chanting. So kirtan is like singing mantras, singing the names of the gods and goddesses. And so they were singing, and I was just getting like, I was just sitting there like in Padmasana, kind of singing and chanting, and I was just getting into that such a deep silent space inside, such just like stillness and bliss. And it got to a point where the music was kind of picking up, and I was like, let's go, to my friend Teresa, and we like ran up there to dance, and there wasn't even anyone dancing really, and it was in front of like a lot of people, but we didn't even care at all. It was just that complete freedom, and I just was like, I literally just had to just jump for joy, and I was jumping around, dancing around, completely sober, just like hysterically ecstatic and just so joyful, and dancing with all these strangers who were in the same space. Everybody's just beaming and laughing, and we were like little kids. Everyone's like swinging around, holding hands. Like, it was so beautiful. It was such a perfect experience. I was just, literally spinning around, jumping around, hopping around, just in connection with the divine. And it was such a beautiful closing of the whole weekend, and a really great encapsulation of the whole experience and what everybody was just nourishing and cherishing there. That was what everybody's goal was and intention was, and so it manifested, right? It manifested, and it was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it was almost in a way like a modern day Woodstock, in that it's this group of people that are except sober. It's this group of people that are almost what's the word? They're butting heads with like modern day life.
Yeah. They're modern culture.
They're saying, you know what, this isn't the way of life that I want to live, and we've all come to this one place that's completely away from the rest of the world, but it's now this space where it's our environment, it's our ecosystem to just completely be in this space of love and gratitude towards God, towards Paramashiva, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's like, it is a kind of counterculture movement, and it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I think the coolest part for me was also the fact that you knew nobody was high on anything else. There was no alcohol, no substances, nor did I even see like behind the scenes people like trying to take stuff, which I was kind of thinking. And so it was just amazing to see that bliss and that joy was coming from within the divine. It was so pure. It was so pure and innocent and beautiful. So yes, we will end on that for today. Thank you for listening to our sharing of Bhakti in our lives, and I truly pray and hope for all of you to have those experiences and to be blessed with that in your lives, because it's been the biggest blessing in my life by far.
Absolutely.
By far. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. You can watch this podcast on our YouTube channel, The Anandas. You can also listen to it on iTunes now. You can listen to it on iTunes and Spotify. So it's much easier to listen to now. You don't have to go to our Podbean podcast audio. You can listen to it on iTunes if you search Yoga from the Source. So check it out, subscribe. You'll get notified about all our episodes, and it's much easier to access them now on your phones. We love you guys. Thank you.
And we'll close with the Puna mantra. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hadi Om Datsat Sarvam Bhagavat Shri Nithyananda Paramashivam Paduka Paramastu. Om Nithyanandam